Today is October 28th, 2008. We're meeting today with Mr. Kenton Wagner at his home in Brighton, Colorado. My name is Brad Hoops. I'm the interviewer for the Northern Colorado Veterans History Project. Good afternoon, Kenton, and thanks for participating in the project today. Let's start out, if we could. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born, your date of birth, a little bit about your family.
Okay. My parents bought a farm before I was born, and what they called a blowing community between Monte Vista and Alamosa, Colorado. And then I was born 21st of April, 1918. Born on the farm.
Okay. Did you have any siblings?
Oh yes, I have a sister.
I had a sister. I had a sister 4 years younger than myself, and she was born on the farm there. And then I have a brother that's 13 years younger than I am. He was born on the farm there in the Bowen community.
So family spread out then.
And that was it was a 160-acre farm there. Almost all those farms in that area were 160 acres at the time.
And you went through the school system there?
Yes, and when I attended school, we had a little country school about half a mile from where we lived. And I attended school there. They had a teacher in 8 grades in the school.
Wow.
And I think it was when I was in the 7th grade, the school said, consolidated with the Monte Vista schools. And then I finished up my schooling in Monte Vista. I attended elementary school there and high school. I graduated from high school in Monte Vista.
And what did you do after you graduated from high school?
Well, I worked there at the farm, and my dad, he raised sheep. He run about 400 or 500 head of sheep there on the farm and on the high range. And I was fascinated when these sheep shearers come to shear. So I had this friend that had the equipment, and he taught me to shear sheep. So I did this for about 2 or 3 years. I went sheared sheep there in San Luis Valley, and I would go to Wyoming and shear on big herds up in Wyoming.
Is that right? Yeah.
It's here over 100 a day.
And then my father was superintendent of an irrigation district there. I had a reservoir there, and he took care of the reservoir and distributed the water to the farmers there in that area. What they call terrace, they call it terrace irrigation district. And I worked for them for 2 or 3 years, and I helped on the farm and farmed there. And what was it, 1943 that when was Pearl Harbor?
41.
41.
Yeah.
Okay. The day before Pearl Harbor, I enlisted in the regular army.
Is that right? Why did you enlist?
Well, I was going to be drafted.
Oh, you knew you were.
I knew it was, so
Yeah.
I just went down and enlisted.
Now, why did you choose to enlist in the Army as opposed to the Marines or the Navy or the Air Corps?
Well, one of the reasons was I wanted to do a certain job in the Army, and I wanted to be an airplane and engine mechanic. And so that's what I enlisted for. And they took me in, and I had a month's basic training at Jefferson Barracks, Missouri. And
Well, now, let me back up real quick. You said you enlisted the day before Pearl Harbor. Do you remember where you were when you heard Pearl Harbor had been bombed?
yeah, I was on the farm, living at home. We were married at that time. No, we weren't married.
We weren't married yet, but you come and told me that we enlisted, and I just knew you didn't love me. Because we'd been going together. We went together 5 years before we got married.
Is that right?
I was living on the farm when I enlisted in the Army.
And then how much longer after you enlisted did you ship off to boot camp?
Well, I shipped out. I enlisted on Friday. I think it was, or Saturday before Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor was.
Then they sent me to Denver on Monday.
Is that right? That soon?
Shipped me out.
Oh boy! Did you have any time to have a going away party or anything?
No,
just
I didn't have anything.
oh,
Train whistled and it
I
left
just
out
got
all
my
six
suitcase
like
and got on the train and headed for Denver.
Ah.
I came up there to Denver to the recruiting office, and they got me all sworn in and squared away.
And then you said it was off to Missouri.
Then what's that?
You said then off to Missouri for boot camp.
No, yeah, Jefferson Barracks, Missouri. That's where I took my boot camp for basic.
And how was that? How was the transition from civilian life into military life for you?
Well, I didn't tell you the full story. In 1934, I enlisted. I was 16 years old, and I enlisted in the Colorado National Guard. They had a guard unit there in Monte Vista, and before I enlisted in that unit, it was cavalry, a horse outfit.
Oh, be darned.
And when after I had enlisted, then they got 75 millimeter guns, and they pulled them with trucks, and I was in that outfit. I attended drill.
Were you still part of the National Guard when you enlisted for the regular Army?
No, I'd got out of the National
Okay.
Guard. I'd been out for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I guess.
Huh.
See, I served from 1934 to 1938, I guess it was. And the Guard, and then I got out of the Guard, and then, like I said, I enlisted in 1940. 1941 was, December 1941,
Yeah.
that was Pearl Harbor.
And so now you're at basic training in Missouri. So continue on with your story
Yeah.
here.
Well, then after that, why, they sent me to Jefferson Barracks for basic training. Then they decided to send me to school, and they sent me to school at, what's the name of that place in Illinois, Sonny?
I can't remember.
I
I was in love.
took
I
my
didn't have-
training.
It wasn't Jefferson Barracks, of course, because that was.
No,
Yeah.
that was the Air Force, or Army Air Corps.
Honey, I can't help you.
That's
on
fine.
that. Gotta look back in.
But so somewhere in Illinois you got.
How's
Somewhere in Illinois you went next for additional training.
Yes,
And did you end up getting what you wanted?
yes, I did.
Okay.
After I finished, they sent me, well, I guess I was there 6 months taking airplane and engine training. And then when I graduated from that, they sent me down to Georgia for about 2 weeks, and then I got assigned to a P-40 Fighter Squadron that at that time they had a runway at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and it was right along the coast. And in fact, we had our tent set up right at the edge of the woods and the shore, the coast there.
What was that like for someone from the high desert of Colorado to be on the shoreline?
That was a change, all right, sure was.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I guess we were there. About 2 months. Well, I was there with that fighter, and I worked on P-40 and there, and I got pretty well established. And they stayed there about 2 months, and then they moved to Florida. And this was a new base. It was Pinellas. They called it Pinellas Air Base, and that's where I was at all during the war. I spent the whole war there.
And
then in when was it, honey, was married, 1943?
45.
1945.
45. We
No,
were married.
43.
Yes, because our oldest daughter was born in 45.
Yeah, it was 43.
I don't know why you don't get your book out and look at all these
Yeah.
names and
Anyhow,
numbers
it was
and years.
1943.
1943, I'm wrong. Okay, now,
well, now,
that's when we went to Florida.
how was that? I mean, you're apart. You're all over the country, and she was back probably home. How did you
Yeah,
guys?
she was at home.
Keep
And
act-
we weren't married
I was
yet.
still in
Yeah.
high school.
Oh,
She's still in high school.
and
So,
you came home on leave to
I-
ask her to marry, or how did?
yeah, after I was down there, I think that was about 13, 14 months. So I came home and we got married, and I took her back with me, and we lived in St. Petersburg, Florida. I lived there, worked at the air base.
And how was that? Once again, living in tropical Florida, coming from Colorado.
Yeah, that was a
Cool
change. all
Colorado
right.
and dropped off in.
I'll never forget when we got there and got off the train that
He just hit
afternoon.
me right in the face.
She got off and that heat hit her in the face. She didn't know
I
what
was
to
used
think.
to Colorado
Well,
weather, and this
so-
was in June, see, in the very spring.
Yeah,
Oh, I hated that
16th
heat
of June,
weather.
or, yeah.
43, we got married.
Yeah, we were married, they had a Methodist church in that area. In fact, the church is still there. We went back and celebrated 100th anniversary here a few months ago. And
Church is
That-
100 years old
that's
now.
where we was married, in this little church there in the Bowen community.
I'll be darned. Well, now, how did you work this out as far as getting engaged? How did you propose to her? I mean, if you were, was that kind of the plan before you left for the service, or?
Oh, yeah, that
Oh.
was before I ever went into the service.
So you were engaged before?
Oh, I was
Okay.
engaged.
Okay.
I told him when you got to be a staff sergeant, you'd come home and get married. Didn't you?
Yeah.
That's the way it was.
I was private, and I told her, I says, when I get promoted to staff sergeant, I'll come home, we'll get married. And that's what I did. When I got promoted, when I come home, we got married and went back.
Well, now, how did you keep in touch? Correspond, I guess, through letters
Yeah,
back.
we wrote letters and correspondence.
Just letters, that's all there was.
Yeah, because there really was. Obviously, there wasn't internet or television or.
all that stuff. No,
occasionally-
we had none of that.
Could you make a phone call occasionally, or was?
Not very often, because his parents was about the only ones that had telephones in those days in the Bowen community. Because the whole community kind of went to Wagner's to use their telephone, those kind, you do like this.
Is that right?
We didn't have a phone. My parents didn't
Yeah.
have a phone. We only lived 1.25 miles from, or about 1.5 miles around the road from his folks.
Yeah,
So we didn't
our
have
place, the farm I was living on, and I'll tell you a little bit about her, how come she was there. You probably heard about the dust storms
Yeah, right.
in eastern Colorado.
We lived in eastern
Kansas.
Colorado and blew out there
Well,
and come
her,
there.
that's where they were living. They were living on one of these places out in eastern Colorado.
The
And
government
they
bought
just
you a
literally
house,
blew
tin
out,
house and
and of
things.
course they lost everything they had. All their livestock had died and everything. So when they come out there, all they had, her father had, was how many children, honey?
5 left out of 10. 10
Yeah.
of us that were gone, away from home at that time.
Yeah, So,
I was the lower six, I'm the oldest
when
of the
our
lower six.
parents come out there, all they had was an old car, and they
And a
came
dog
out
and half a
there.
dozen kids.
And what happened, the government went in there to help these people, and they bought these farms that they could buy and divided them
80
up
acres.
in 80-acre tracts. And they built a pretty nice house.
A
and
new
a
house,
barn,
new chicken
and a
house, and a
they
barn.
improved these farms.
Each one of us had a
Then
house.
they moved
to
these people from eastern Colorado and settled them in there they had a long loan. They loaned them money to buy the farm. And their farm was one of these farms that cornered our farm.
Okay.
Out on the corner. It's
That's how
a mile and a
we
half around the road to our house.
got together.
I'll be
We
done.
got together quite often, didn't we, Dad?
Well, I guess while we're talking about that time period, you also went through the Great Depression then.
Oh, yeah, I went through the
What was that
Depression.
like out there? I mean,
Well,
how did it affect you guys?
something, we always had plenty to eat.
Yeah.
And my dad,
Yeah.
he'd go up in the mountains and cut wood and haul it down, and then he'd take that wood and take it down, sell it, and he'd buy flour or sugar or staples and things, food like that. But like I said, we always had plenty to eat, had good food. Didn't always have nice clothes to wear, but
Well, in those days, the
we got
mothers
by,
made the
you know.
clothes for the kids, that's, out of flour sacks and all, whatever.
Yeah.
It wasn't go to the store and buy a $50 suit or anything,
Huh.
not in those days.
Well, let's bounce ahead now again. You guys are married. You're back in Florida. Now, how long did you live in Florida, or were you stationed there in Florida?
we left there in 1946.
46.
Yeah, but that was when the war was over, what was it, September, I think,
Mm-hmm.
1946. And we left there and went back to Alamosa and rented a place in Alamosa. We
Now,
lived there.
is that when you were discharged in 46? And is that the reason?
1946, I was discharged,
Yeah.
yes.
Do you remember where you were when you heard various things like VE Day or VJ Day and knew the war was over?
Yeah, well, I was at Pinellas Air Base at that time, just out of St. Petersburg.
Okay. Yeah. And what were conditions like on the base? Did you have did you even live on the base as a married couple?
We didn't live on the base.
Oh, okay.
We lived in town. They didn't have family housing there. They just had the housing for the single people.
How was it as far as rationing and stuff, getting what you needed with the rationing going on?
We got along real well. It didn't affect us. I never had it. Most of the time I was there, we didn't have a car. So, and I might say our first child, she was born out of Tampa, Florida, in a hospital over there. That's where our oldest daughter was. We had her while I was in the service.
She's over here in the nurse at the hospital now.
Yeah.
That's the reason we're here, 'cause she lived here.
Okay.
She lived.
And what was your specialty then on the base? You were a mechanic. Did you have a specialty?
Yes, I was a mechanic there about 3 years, an airplane, an engine mechanic. I crewed an airplane. We had P-40s when I first joined the unit, and we had P-40s when we went to Pinellas. And later they changed over to the P-51, and I worked on it. Then I got to be a inspector, and all I did was inspect the airplanes after the work was completed on and so forth.
Now, was this a training base, or what was the purpose of the base?
Yeah, it was training base for pilots.
Okay.
They took their gunnery training there. They flew the P-40s, P-51s, and
Was it hard when they would introduce a new airplane for you to learn? Was there differences in the airplane? Was that hard to?
you know,
Yeah.
but we had P-40s and we had P-51s.
And then you were discharged in 46, and you said you guys came back to Alamosa.
I
And,
came back to Alamosa.
and what did you do from there on?
Well, I found a job in a lumber yard that was near where we was living, and I worked for these people about 2 years. And then the Colorado National Guard decided to activate a unit in Alamosa. So they did. They activated the unit in Alamosa, and of course there was each one of these units had a full-time employee that was full-time. He did the maintenance,
Okay.
and he did all the administrative work and everything else. So I took one of those jobs, and I worked for the Colorado National Guard.
Through your whole career, or?
No, not my whole career. I worked for the Guard, and
So you were talking. You were now with the National Guard down in Alamosa, and how long were you with them?
like I said, then in 1950, the unit we were in was called active duty
Oh, geez, for the Korean War.
for the Korean War, right? And so we wound up in Fort Rucker, Alabama, and
We all went, family went.
I don't know just how long we were there, but well, it was in October we went there, the unit in Alabama. Then January, they decided to move the unit to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin. And I had the family down there and all situated, and then we moved to Wisconsin.
Oh, geez, how many children did you have by this time?
Well, at that time, I just had the one girl.
Okay, okay.
I was born down there.
Okay.
And so then we're there, and the unit was on that duty 2 years.
Up in Wisconsin?
And they sent me to school at Fort Belvoir, Virginia for 10 weeks. I went up there just out of Washington, D.C. at Fort Belvoir. And I went to school there and then come back and joined back the unit. And
What did you go down to schooling for? What type of schooling did you go down for?
it was maintenance.
Oh, still the maintenance? Okay.
Maintenance on aircraft.
Okay, okay, okay.
And then when the armistice was signed, the peace deal, they sent me up to Georgia, and they had all these airplanes they were bringing in. And it was my job. I just had row after row of airplanes that they were flying in from these different bases, and I was what they wanted me to do was to get in these airplanes and fire them up and run them a certain amount. And so all I was doing, I was go from one plane to the next, getting in and firewalling them, and that's all I did for a month or two.
Oh, geez.
And then finally, they sent me down to Maxwell Air Base, and I took my discharge there at Maxwell Air Base in Alabama.
And then after the armistice was signed with Korea, you took a discharge?
Right. Well, what I did, I just stayed on active
Oh, okay.
at that time.
Okay.
That's where I served the rest of my time.
Okay, and then, but you came back to San Luis Valley then, or?
Well, they, I'm trying to think now. Oh, we go.
Why don't you go get your paper that you've written out, as much as you've written out? We're trying to get it written up. Come back, back on yourself and see what you've already told me.
Okay, yeah. After I came back from that active duty the first time, I read things. And,
Born in 48?
what?
48?
48, yeah.
Then was born in 45. 48.
Let's see, where were we now?
Well, you would, by and large, we were talking about the armistice was signed in Korea, so you were done with that.
Yeah.
That
I
tour
went
duty.
back and, I went back, went to work for the Guard again, and then this group headquarters, Colorado National Guard, they were called out duty, and then I come back on that duty with them, and they were on about a year, and then they released that unit, so I said, well, I'm gonna stay in, so that's when I went in and stayed in the military.
So,
At that time, I was at Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
okay, so you'd gone down with the National Guard, and when that unit was released,
Released.
you
from
stayed on.
active
You
duty.
stayed on with the regular Army then.
Yeah, I stayed with I went to regular army.
Okay.
then.
Okay, and this was down in Fort Still. The family come down with you there,
The
or
farm family was with me there at Fort Sill,
okay?
and
One of the oldest girls.
while I was there at Fort Sill, I think what was it? I was there about 2 years, and they sent us to Germany.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah,
I think of it.
about 2 years,
We
and
went to Germany.
then I got orders to go to Germany, so I took the family with me, and we went over by ship on the ship and went to Germany.
Well, now how was that? Here we've got a family from landlocked Colorado taking a sea voyage. How was that? Did you get your sea legs? How was the trip over?
Oh, wonderful.
Was it? Yeah.
And we had, at that time, we had these 2 daughters, and they were on the one daughter stayed
The
here.
oldest girl stayed here because she was
She was in college, and
She was in
so
college.
the other 2 daughters, we had 2 other,
Yes, the two
and
Phyllis and
they
Cheryl.
were on the ship, and they just had a ball on the ship.
So if your oldest daughter was in college, this must have been years later then that you.
Yes.
This was what, probably early '60s then, or when would?
What year was it that Linda was married? She got married while we was over there in
She
Germany.
stayed home to go to college and therefore she got married. I don't know what, I'll have to look at my black book, honey.
Yeah.
The book tells me when.
It's when her and Carl got married.
Yes, I can't remember exactly what year it was that she was born. I mean, that she was married. Well, see, Dan's 43. 40. The oldest grandson's 43, so it's been 43 years ago that,
About 65 then.
Yeah.
64, 65.
64, 65 maybe.
Where were you stationed there in Germany? Do you remember the base?
Pirmasens, Germany.
Yeah.
Hermisons and kids.
Now-
Yeah, I forgot to tell you, I was staff sergeant when I come home to get married. And then later years after I came back from, I was working in the Guard, I got appointment as a warrant officer. And so when I went to Germany, I was warrant officer. Well, it's quite a bit different. The enlisted people are down at the bottom of the ship, and the officers, they ate up above. And
Okay.
they got all the nice things, so.
Well, that must have been quite an adventure then, being over in Europe.
Oh yeah, we was there, and
Well, to go on the ship, there's guys in the bottom of the ship and the
we was
officers were
planning
on top
on
of the ship.
being there 3 years, and we was planning a trip to Spain that summer, And all at once I got orders to go back to the States to send me to Vietnam.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
So
So we
we
went back
packed
home.
everything up and went back home, and I got the family settled in a house in Alamosa and everything, and I took off for California,
Left me home with 2 girls.
signed a unit in California, and at Fort Irwin, California. And they activated engineer construction battalion there, and I was in that unit. I was a maintenance officer for the construction battalion. And oh, let's see, I'm trying to think how long we were there. But anyhow, they sent me back to Germany. I had an unaccompanied tour when I went back to Germany.
So you never did make it to Vietnam, or?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
well, we don't want to skip that part out.
Yeah.
You-
Well,
Two times to Vietnam.
well, when they sent me back, I was at Fort Irwin, California about a year, and they were sending these units to Vietnam, and I did go with the unit to Vietnam.
what was that like? I imagine, much like Marianne when she landed in Florida, when you landed in Vietnam, with the heat and humidity.
Well, couldn't take my family with
Right.
me, but we had pretty good barracks that we lived, buildings that we lived in there. We was at Vung Tau. Have you ever heard of Vung Tau?
No, where's that at?
That was down lower on the lower coast. It was on the coast,
South of Saigon?
south of Saigon.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it like? What was it like landing there in the tropics? And
It didn't bother
No?
me much. No,
now, did you have any reservations about going to Vietnam? I mean, at this point, this was a different war, and if I remember right, coverage was much better, and you knew what was happening there. Did that bother you at all, or were you affected by that at all?
well, I only had one instance while I was over there. I was maintenance officer for headquarters, and I had an inspection team. I had 3 people working for me. What we did, we visited every unit in Vietnam.
Wow, so you saw a lot of country.
Non-divisional. Now, divisions we did everything too, but non-divisional engineer units, we visited every unit in Vietnam. And we'd go there and stay in a unit about 8 or 10 days and help them with their maintenance, and then we'd go on to the next one. And I did that for a year.
And that involved even going further up north to the
Yeah.
to the front line bases and such.
Right.
What was that like? Did you ever?
I never did get up north very much.
Oh, okay.
I need to get my, excuse me, but
Yeah.
I need to get my story straightened around.
Okay.
I'm talking about my second tour to Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
The first tour to Vietnam, I had a shop in Vung Tau for the battalion, and we did all the maintenance, and we had a whole bunch of light equipment companies and different units attached to them, and I had the responsibility of all their maintenance as well. And of course, they were building roads there and in Vietnam and various things. But like I say, I didn't get it. And I want to remember one incident. One night we was laying, they started cutting loose on us with a mortar, Vietnamese, and we was in this compound, and there was an airfield up above, and they started an airfield, and they was hitting these airplanes, and then they got down to that unit where we was, and they got one barracks is the only thing they hit, and I'll never forget, boy, I rolled out of bed and wrapped up on the floor,
Well, you kind of laugh about it now, but was it scary? I mean, you must have been frightened.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that was the only incident whole time I was there, I ever got into.
Uh,
We were in an airplane more than we was on the ground.
Is that right?
We
Yeah.
flew. We'd go to these units, we'd fly in a larger airplane, then we'd get in a helicopter and go on into the others, and then we'd go so far, and then we'd get in the vehicle and go the rest of the way.
So on your tours, yeah, a tour would generally be 1 year?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was 13-month tour.
Okay.
Then I went back states again, and I was assigned to engineer unit there in the States. And then 2 years later, I got orders again to go back to Vietnam. That's why I had two tours in Vietnam.
Was it?
And that second tour, that was the one where I was assigned to headquarters in Long Binh. And that's when we visited all these units in Vietnam.
So you got to see a good chunk of the country then,
Oh,
doing
yeah.
it that way. What was it like? The country? Could you describe what it was like? Did you ever mingle with the?
Well, I remember Saigon, and I used to go down there to Saigon, and they'd have all these bicycles and these motorcycles and motor scooters, and they'd running up alongside of you, and that was something else. I went down there. That was an experience I had going down to Saigon one time. These people, it was something else.
Was it? I imagine it had to been hard to be away from the family for
Yeah,
those.
I was away from the family.
Yeah.
I wasn't away from the family really that much as some of the people were, but on that tour I was away from the family.
Now, when you're on a tour,
Both tours Vietnam, I was away from the family.
when you're on a tour, you don't have a leave. You serve your 13 months and then go home, or did you?
Well, we got leave. I went back to Hawaii and met her, and we spent a couple weeks together in Hawaii, and that wasn't that bad, really.
Yeah, yeah. So you've been involved really with 3 conflicts. So it must have been quite a bit of difference. You've seen a lot of change in that military career as far as technology and equipment. And,
Yeah.
yeah. And I imagine Vietnam, you could call home every so often.
I called home.
Where in World War II it was letters mostly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, then after I come back from Vietnam that time, I went in the unit and signed. What unit was it I went back to? I guess after I came back the last time. Trying to think now. Oh, that's when I went to Fort Belvoir the first time. Or not Fort Belvoir, but Fort Leonard Wood. That's where I wound up.
Back to Fort Leonard.
And it was interesting. While I was there in Vietnam, I had a real good friend. He was captain, and he'd been at Fort Leonard Wood. And he was telling me about Fort Leonard Wood. He says, that's the best kept secret there is in the United States Army, Fort Leonard Wood. He says, you got everything. You got all this good fish in there. And he said, when you get there, well, you can go in and sign for quarters, move your family in, and you couldn't do that with a lot of the bases.
Yeah.
You'd have to wait a year or 2 years to get into housing.
So the family moved with you to Fort Leavenworth then?
So I was there that's when I was at Fort Sill after I came back from Vietnam. And I had the family there with me. And then when this captain told me about it, I went ahead and signed up to go to Fort Leonard Wood. And we went to Fort Leonard Wood, and on that tour I I've got my stories mixed up.
You're telling too many
The
stories. I
second
can't keep up
time
with you.
that I went to Vietnam, I went from Fort Leonard Wood.
Oh, okay.
And then I went back to Fort Leonard Wood after I got out of Vietnam. we stayed there. I was there about 4 years, and then I retired. And we bought a little old, we bought an acreage out from Waynesville there. That's where Leonard was. And I worked there about a year, and then I got after a while I kind of got tired of that. So then there's a friend of mine who was selling insurance, so I went to work for Mutual Omaha and sold insurance for about 10 years.
Still out in Kansas?
What's that?
You're still out in Kansas? Was that where you were living?
No, that was in Missouri.
Oh, Missouri. Okay.
Yeah, I was there at Missouri.
And then when did you guys move back to Colorado?
We never did move back to Colorado.
I mean, after you retired?
After I retired, we never moved back. We came back here about 4 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But
We stayed in.
we stayed on this little place, and we had that little place. I sold it, and then we moved back.
Into town,
What?
moved back into town.
Moved back into town, bought a place, and
10
we
acres.
lived there till we come out here then.
Okay.
10 years there, 10 years here.
So
Oh, it's 26 times we moved.
26 times. What was the good? What was the bad about being a military family like that?
Well, she liked it.
I can't see anything so bad about it.
She
no.
hated for me to
Yeah,
go
my
off
good friends.
to get off active duty. She really enjoyed being.
We
you know,
enjoyed it, stayed. Our girls enjoyed it.
She had friends on post, and she bowled with them, we really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm sure it's quite a bit different lifestyle from friends and family that you left back home that probably lived there their whole lives and,
Yeah.
and didn't move around like you guys did. So,
Couldn't believe that we stayed as long as we did, moved as many places as we did, but
I guess
we raised our kids and had a good time.
it was a good time then. Yeah,
Yes, it
Can't
was.
complain.
yeah.
But you don't find many of them up here that have been in the military though.
Is that right?
They live in a place like this. There's not hardly any of them that they've run stores or
There's only about, what, 2 or 3 in there.
about 2 or 3 that I know of that's even been in the service.
One man that lives here, he spent quite a bit of time running in the military, and then he worked civil service. And he eats with us, so we exchange war stories
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
War
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you now.
Yeah. Well, it was a good story. Is there anything as we start to wind down the interview that we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about that you'd like to talk about?
I'm just trying to think. Can you think of anything, honey?
No, I don't. I think you've told pieces of all places we've been and everything we've done. If you had it all written out in a book, it'd be a pretty good sized book, yes. Just gotta get to working on it again.
Yeah. So all told, how many years then were you in the military? So you had active military, then you
I
were,
had, between my active and all of it, I had 36 years.
and did they count the time back in the 30s when you're in the Guard as well? Were you able to count all that?
Oh yeah, I counted it all for pay purposes, yeah.
Yeah. So 30.
In fact, when I was, that time I was in Colorado National Guard, I was 16 years old, and that was illegal. I should have been 18.
Oh, is that right? How did you get around that?
And you know something, they went back and found people like me, and they hauled them in and made them pay off. And I was worried all the time they were going to catch up with me sometime, but they never
Never
did.
have caught up with you, did you?
How did you manage to get in at 16?
I was in high school, I had a coach, and he was a lieutenant in that guard unit, and he says, "Oh, I'll get you in." So they took me in and enlisted me. They knew I was 16.
I'll be darned. Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
I knew he was a good guy. Good Army
and I'll never
material.
forget him. His last name was Malcolm.
Yeah, Malcolm.
Yeah.
Throughout your years, your military life, Did you keep in touch with people as you met them, or did?
Yeah, yes, we did.
We still have people live right here in Denver we see every
Yeah,
week.
we have friends here in Denver that I was on active duty with.
Is that right?
We see them every so often, yeah.
And they have the National Guard guys every 3 months, they have a party over here to.
You know, the
to
National
pay.
Guard, they have a luncheon every 3 months, and a lot of these old guys that
Go in and slap
worked
backs, you know.
for the Guard through the years, they come to this, and they're there. And
Do you like to go to them? You go to them as well?
Yeah, we like to
We
go to
go,
'em.
yeah.
Yeah.
You get to see them and see what they're doing and how their health is and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of them. There's a big crowd of them down there at the restaurant.
Well, there's one couple that we was real good friends with that was in this one unit that was there when we was at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And we kept in contact with them. And they're one of the couples that attend this National Guard job.
I'll be darned.
We get to visit with them when they come.
Couple hours, big restaurant, have a big meal.
In fact, this one unit I was in, I worked for him. He was a G4, and I worked for him. And so,
Well,
It seems
and
good.
this guy, he had a lot of good record. World War II, he went through all this fighting in Italy,
oh, jeez.
and he could tell you a lot of good stories.
Sure can.
What, with your military career and all the conflicts you've been involved in, what are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on, the wars that we're in today and what's going on there? Any opinion on that? With the current wars in Iraq and Afghanistan?
What about it?
Well, with your military background and the conflicts that you've been in, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, do you have any thoughts on our present war?
Well, I guess I shouldn't say this, but I think this thing was in Iraq was rather just not a real good decision. I really don't. When they had that thing with Kuwait, they went in there and boom, 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 boom. And that was the time that Bush Sr. was president. And I think, I shouldn't say this, but I think the President Bush, I think he figured, well, we're going up there and kick their butts, and that wasn't a very good decision, really, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
That's kind of the way I feel about it.
How do you feel with the various conflicts you were involved in too? Particularly, I mean, it seems like it was night and day with World War II and Vietnam, where the country was behind the war in World War II. It was kind of divided in Vietnam. Did that play? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, when I told you, when I come up here to Denver, I rode up here on a train. And I got off the train and they took me down there to the recruiting office. And there was a line, I bet you 3 blocks long, waiting to get into the recruiting office to enlist. They was lined up that far.
Wow.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
So, seen all these people standing waiting to get into the recruiting office.
Wow.
So World War II, there's this different ball game, really.
Yeah. Do you feel you were treated any different, but like in World War II, in the Vietnam War?
Not really. No.
Okay.
No, I really don't. I think I got a fair shake even when I was enlisted. I think I got a fair shake all the time.
Okay, good.
Really do. And I enjoyed the 36 years. I enjoyed every bit of it.
36 years.
If I had it do over again, I'd do the same thing again.
That is amazing. That's wonderful. Well, as we close down this interview, is there any final statement that you'd like to make to anybody that'll watch us someday? Any final closing thoughts?
Well, one thing that I'm concerned about, we had our grandson had a friend and he's younger than my grandson quite a bit, but he kind of took this young man under his wing, you know. And I kept saying, and his brother kept saying all the time, says, well, and I guess his mother was an alcoholic and he didn't have a very good family life. So that's why he kind of attached on to our grandson. But I worry about people like this. And the other day, my grandson told me, he said, well, Steve is going to go down and enlist in service. And I says, boy, I says, that's the best news I've heard, because that boy can get a start that way. If he does what he's supposed to do, he can get a start.
He said the other night that he had his GED.
Yeah. Yeah,
He's
he
21.
didn't even finish high school, you know.
So
and
they're
that-
working on him.
And you
This
think that-
bothers me because on young people
Such
like
a
that.
nice looking little kid. He's blonde headed and everything. We
Yeah.
thought the world and all of him. But he just didn't have any home
And you
life.
think the military is going to be a helpful step for
Oh,
him?
yeah.
Yeah.
If he
Don't
goes
worry
in the
about that.
military and he may go into it, if he likes it and he works good, he'll do well, you
think he
know.
will.
He really will. He'll do well.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of others like that the same way.
Yeah.
They have to
But
go
I
down
feel
and see
real
for
strong
themselves.
about these young people like that. And
That's wonderful.
He's
And
wonderful
I
kid.
think if these soldiers that are in Iraq now that got families, you know, and
Oh, yeah,
I know she can tell you when she lived in this little town and I was over in Vietnam, every time she'd see these people coming in uniform, well, you know, they come to tell the family that,
Oh, jeez.
One
Yeah.
time, one army man came to my front door there in Waynesville, Missouri.
You thought it was for
Scared
you?
me to death. I'll
Oh,
never forget
boy.
that, how I felt and how I looked at that
Oh,
man.
yeah.
He said, first thing he said, I'm not coming to tell you what you think.
Oh.
I'm coming for something. He told me right then what he was there for. But he was in uniform and he come walking up my side.
Oh, that would have been a.
Scared me to
Oh,
death.
sure.
Because the mail, he wrote me every day, believe it or not, and the mail wouldn't come. You know, it
Right.
would come and then
Yeah.
it would be gone 2 or 3 days. Then I get a whole handful of letters again, and it'd been a while since I'd had the letters or
Oh,
two.
boy.
And I tell you, my old heart went pitter pat so fast it never did that before. I'll
Huh.
never forget that day. But they come to something else, something to invite me to tell me to do this or that or sometime. Well, it's now. I was so afraid that he was telling me that I didn't have a husband anymore.
Oh, jeez.
That was a long time ago, though.
Yeah.
But I haven't
But it's still in your mind. I mean, it's
yeah,
still
I'll
fresh.
never forget
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Never can I forget it.
yeah, I think that was one thing that really,
That was one thing that really upset me.
Sure. Sure.
But other than that,
It was a good life then, huh?
made a good life, yeah.
you enjoyed every bit of it, didn't you?
Sure I did. I'd do it again if I had the same guy, I'd do it again.
Oh,
They
You know,
let me
we've
do
been
it
married
again.
65 years.
65 years.
That's when we was married up there
Yeah.
in 43.
Yeah, I'll get that.
He's got a uniform up there.
Well, Kenton, I want to thank you for sitting down to tell your story today. More importantly, though, I want to thank you for your service to our country.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming.
Anything you want
This is my, this picture is really a favorite of mine. I look at it every day and it reminds me of a good
Life
time
we've
that
had
we've
together.
had together.
to? And this was 1943, correct?
1943.
43 we were married.
Okay.
Good old boots, brown boots.